All right, so here we are in GarageBand. What we have here is a drum kit, kick, snare, crash cymbal, hi-hats, rack, and floor tom. Now, in Community Church, we don't have the ability right now to separate those instruments out on a drum kit. What we're getting from the Roland V drums is one kit sent in a stereo left and right. But the things I'm going to show you today with EQ and compression, the principles apply to other instruments. Now, the exact settings that I'm going to be using for these things may not transfer over to different instruments. Anyway, so let's begin. So here we have a kick. Okay, the pattern is very simple. It's just doing ones and threes. Sounds like this. Now, that sounds pretty good to me because I've already doctored this up. So I'm going to turn off all the things that I've done so that you can hear what it sounds like without any of the doctoring. Just so you know, in the file that you have for this drums session, if you will, the crash is already panned, the hats are already panned to the left, and same thing for the toms. I did that because that's typically where you'd start panning. So I want to get those out of the way so we don't have to deal with that stuff. Now, this is what the drums sound like without any EQ, compression, or anything. It's a decent sound. All right, so let's solo the kick. What do we got going on? Now, I'm hoping you're wearing good headphones. If you are, you can actually hear that there's a little bit of noise coming from this kick drum. And if I put on the gate, didn't do a darn thing. Okay, well, that's interesting. Why? What is happening? That's because I'm affecting the floor tom. I'm on the wrong instrument. I think it was negative 22. Well, see, that's important to know. Okay, click on the kick drum. There we go. Okay, and listen to it. So what a gate does is it only lets in things the same way a natural gate does. It closes off whatever you're trying to close off from things you don't want in there. So in audio world, a gate will only let things go through the gate, which means you'll hear it if it's above a certain threshold. Most gates or better gates have more settings than just this. This gate here only lets you control the threshold at what point something's coming in and out. So I'm gonna bring this all the way up to 0, and then you'll hear that there's almost no kick. No kick. Now if I bring this down, you'll start to hear more and more. So the initial hit of the kick drum, known as the transient, is really loud, and that's coming through, but not the rest of the drum. Sounds pretty decent. 30 is too much. There's a little trail of noise. I like 22. 23. That sounds pretty good to me. All right, so from there, let's listen to the kick now by itself. I feel like it's still missing something. It's not very punchy. It sounds decent. Like, it's got a nice, thick sound, but it's not punchy. Rock and pop snare kick drums have a lot of punch. Let's go back. So compression. Excuse me. What compression does is it diminishes the dynamic range of an instrument in a particular way so that you can control it a lot better. So I'm going to squash the heck out of this kick drum, and then we will bring it back just to show you what is on an extreme setting. So if you look down here, this is how much it is reducing the signal. Say what compressor does is squishes it, right? So it's squashing the signal. Now, if I bring this up, it'll do it less. You can still tell it sounds weird. It doesn't sound anything like it used to. It's because the attack time, so it's squishing it so fast. Anything that hits minus 23 or above threshold, it is crushing it, that signal by a factor of 30. So it's acting like a limiter, what it means, like, basically nothing can pass it. Like, if it was 60 decibels above minus 23, it's crushing it down to 2, because it's dividing it by 30. So this is crazy, crazy strong. I'm going to bring it down to something normal, like 3 to 4. I'm going to start with 4. 4 to 1 ratio. So anything that hits, well, I guess I can't. Anything that hits above the threshold will get knocked down by a factor of 4. So if it's 8 above, it'll be 2 in the output. So it sounds a little bit more like the kick drum. But now what we can do is with the attack, we can allow the transient to come in naturally. That's the initial crack of the drum. And then it'll compress the thump, like the of the drum, to make it sound uniform. So listen to this. Okay, so it's with compression on. Now listen with the attack. As I slow the attack or make the attack longer, milliseconds, the initial crack will come through and it'll sound punchy. That sounds really good to me. This is what it sounded like before. Again, not a bad sound. But compare that to this. Here we go. And then lastly at the bottom here is gain. So because a compressor will reduce the signal by compressing it, right, squishing it, you can use gain to bring up the level again. Now, what's interesting is that the initial transient is actually louder than it used to be, but the oomph of the drum is probably somewhere the same. So you're getting this, like, it's a reshaping of the sound of the kick drum based upon the loudness at different points. Okay? Let's raise the compressor up. Yeah, I like that. Now let's go to EQ, all right? Actually, I'm going to turn this off first and just go to EQ. See, to show you what you can do with EQ without any compression. All right, so I have a curve here that I've disabled that I already created to make this kick drum sound good. So let's go through it before we do anything. So this is like exceptionally low, right? These are the low end. This is all up to the high end. I'm cutting out all the low frequencies that aren't doing anything discernible for the feel of the drum. I am boosting the thump, the boom. There's a particular pitch for this drum, and I'm boosting that just to give it a more presence. Over here, I'm getting rid of the boxiness, and over here, I'm adding a little bit more attack, so like that crispy of the kick drum. That way it cuts through in the mix. And I'm going to disable stuff and add it back in piece by piece so you can hear the difference. Excuse me. So, no effect. I'm going to throw this on there. Probably not hearing a difference at all. That's fine. Okay, now here's where I boost the thump. That's dramatic. Maybe too much. Let's lower that a little bit. Okay. Now this is something that you would not even know is happening because it's subtractive, it's reducing it. Listen to the difference between that and when I turn it off. It's very subtle. Okay, now off. Compression back on. EQ off. It's almost a little darker and more mid-rangey. That's because that's what I'm doing. I'm boosting the lows, and I'm boosting the highs, and pulling out the mids. Now with the EQ back on. Oh, that sounds to me like a modern kick drum. I like the way that sounds. Right? And then context. Now let me turn these things off and you can hear it. Back on. Cool. Now let's solo that again. And let's add a little reverb because of the gate now, it sounds a little artificial. So I want to add a little bit more room to the sound. Let's see what happens here. That's enormous. I hate it. Ooh. That's way too much. I like that. Ooh. So this is the kick drum with all those things on. Let's see if I can turn them off. This is just EQ. It's very subtle, but you don't even notice it. The compressor's making an enormous difference. But now listen to it with, and then with the gate back on. Ah, much better. And then yeah. That sounds muy delicioso. Alright, let's head over to the snare. Okay. If you listen to that, it's got a great crack. It's got a great set of tones. You know, overall, that's a very usable snare sound. So the first thing I noticed is there is some ringing. Go, go. And then there's some overtones that I don't really love. So I actually already went through this and I found what those are, but I'll show you the process for finding that. So let me turn this off, and then I'll use this guy. So these three are the ones I used. I'm just going to use this yellow EQ dot to show you how to go about finding the problem areas. So, what did I just do? Oh. Okay, let's try again. So, usually to find a problem area, you boost and you sweep. So first thing I'm going to do is try to find the actual pitch of the drum. That sounds pretty good. If I take that away, I lose the body of the drum. So there's some low energy here. Let me hear that. That's not great. So let's... so okay. So I don't like that sound. It's too pronounced already. So what I did was I found that EQ, which is about 235, 230, and then I just decrease it. And then because this is a digital EQ, I can increase the Q and tighten that basically pinpoint that one frequency and really subtract it out. And that's what I did here. And it doesn't make it go away entirely, but it's enough where it sounds better to me than before. So this is what it was before. So to me, it's gone enough where I like it a lot better. Now, also there's a weird ringing sound. Let's see if I can find that. So first I'm going to bring the Q back to make it wider. So then, and then I'm going to bring it up. Let's see if we can hear that. So I'm going to just do a decrease. And it's at, and even that's enough. I think that's pretty much what I did here to get rid of that. And then lastly, what did I do? I boosted the fundamental pitch, just to give it a little bit more low-end boost. Okay, so now that pretty much the EQ without. Boom! That sticks out to me. Now that's a pretty good sound. So now let's see what we can do with compression. With compression on a snare, you can really make the initial snap come through. Now, we're only doing drums here. There's not a rest of a band that we're going to hear. So these things are important to listen to in the context of the mix. But essentially in pop and rock, the initial crack is usually very prominent, so you can really hear the snare in a full band setting. So I have some settings that I used before. This is what it sounded like without it. Again, that's not a bad sound, but listen to how much snappier it gets. Right, that's like in your face. So let's get there. So same thing before, lots of compression, crazy ratio, immediate, and I'll ignore the makeup gain for now. But so the compressor is just destroying the snare. It is like squishing it and making it almost non-existent. So first, let's change the ratio down. Usually a 3 to 4 ratio is a good starting point. Okay, and then let's it is really crushing this thing. Okay, that's basically no compression. I really want the transient to come through, so I slow the attack. That's pretty good. Ooh, that is nice. Oh, it's getting better. It's a subtle difference. Let's see if I can try something here. We'll raise that, and I'll compress this even harder. A little too much. All right, let's hear the. You know, I don't like that setting. So, okay, one of the things we're hearing is the snares are coming. That's because the gate is turned. I'm sorry, the compressor is turning off and letting everything return to normal. Normally on a compressor, there's something called a release. The release lets you control when and how long the thing will stay on. I don't have that here, and that's why we're getting that weird effect. So I'm going to decrease the ratio so it's not as severe. Alright, let's try that in context now. Okay. Snare with nothing on it. That's a great snare sound. Just the compressor, and this is a taste thing, but to me that sounds more radio friendly, sounds more modern than the snare before. This just sounds like, I'll leave the EQ on. It sounds like you're just hearing a snare in a room via a microphone. This sounds to me, when I turn the compressor back on, I don't know, it just sounds more contemporary. Let's check out the snare now and add some verb. But what did I use before on the kick? Space D. That worked out pretty good. Let's try Space D again. Space Designer. Hate it. Let's try a little bit more space. Oh my goodness, that is horrendous sounding. I absolutely hate that. 100 seconds? Is this for real? I do not enjoy that. Let's try a different setting. Okay, let's try the context of a mix. Okay, so something I'm hearing here is this snare, the reverb is adding a lot of like weird high-end sounding thing. This is the snare without reverb. Reverb on. I do not like that at all. Ugh. Let's try a different one. No Space D. You're the worst. Reverb. Silver verb. I don't know what that is. Ugh. I really don't like these. You know what? One last try. Echo? Why is there echo now? This is going swimmingly. Alright, forget it. Alright, lastly. I'm going to skip the hats for now, because there's 3 channels of them, and I don't feel like dealing with that. Let's go head over to the toms and give that a listen. So I have 2 toms here. I'm going to just... The drum fill here is fantastic. It's probably the most, I don't know, beautiful thing ever written. That's right. That's how we do. Okay, so let's deal with one at a time. Okay, we got this guy. So with toms, typically what you do is you EQ them, and you put gates on them to remove all the extra stuff. So sometimes toms, when you hit them, you go boom, and it'll last a long time. It does like at the end, which is not usually desirable. Also, tom mics are great at picking up cymbals, snare, and kick, which is the rest of the kit. And a lot of times you gate those things out because you don't want that to come into your mix. Right, if you're controlling the kick drum or the snare through those microphones, you don't want the tom microphone to add more color or whatever that you're doing into your mix, so you often gate them. I'm not going to gate them here. Well, maybe I should. Let's listen. It's definitely noise, so let's try the gate. Well, I hear noise from this guy too. Okay. See how long that gate is? I'm sorry, how long the trail of the tom is? It's not terrible. Alright, whatever. So it's not effective because this gate doesn't have a lot of controls. So I'm not even going to try to do anything with it. So I'm going to just turn it off. With the EQ, there's a lot of things you can do, similar to the kick drum. So I already have a pattern here that you can look at, but I'm going to show you how I came to figure this out. All right, so I will use what's not getting used here. This guy. All right, I'll use this guy to control everything. So I'm going to turn you off, this one, and this one. So a drum has a natural frequency, a natural resonance, and I'm going to find that first, so I can accent it if I want to. That just sounds like I'm adding more of the drum, which is kind of cool. That's the pitch of the drum. And if I double that, I should see another one right here. So what frequency am I at? 90, so about 180, I should hear the octave. Boom, boom. So it'd be like, boom. Hear that? And if I double that again to like, what was that, 360? And you can see, right, there's the maiden bump there, double the frequency there, that's an octave up, and then double it again, somewhere around here. You get more of the drum. Anyway, so I can boost that, which is this guy. That sounds great to me. Or maybe it's lower. Maybe it's 80 hertz. So 160. Yeah, somewhere in there. All right. And I think I'm removing some low mid energy right around here. Okay, so listen to what that sounds like if I boost it. But if I take it out, it just helps focus the sound right there. So I did it's a pretty dramatic cut. Now off, on. It's like this dark kind of sound that I'm removing by doing this. And then there is a crack of the stick hitting the drum that's being picked up right about there. So I'll show you that too. Hear that pop? Hear that? That's right here. I hate that sound. So I'm going to actually use this EQ to pull that out. I'm going to, actually, let's make this. Okay, and then I'll widen it a little bit. And bring it down. Ah, so much better. That's the EQ off, EQ on. And now, so this EQ, I can use to actually boost somewhere over here if I needed to get a little bit more crack out of the drum. So that's one way to do that. All right, that sounds pretty good to me. And then the floor tom. Ooh, that is big and fat. Now, if you listen, you can hear it go. Boom, boom. So the drum, when it hit, the skin is tighter, so the pitch is a little higher. And when it finally relaxes and goes back normal, the pitch drops because it gets a little bit looser. So with the gate, I can kind of control that a little bit. That's pretty severe, but I don't love the way it sounds with it off. It just seems to be a lot of noise. So I'm gonna leave it on. Now, EQ. This is the EQ pattern I figured out for this drum. A similar principle, finding the actual tone of the drum there and pulling out some mid frequencies, lower mids, that I just think don't add anything to the beauty of the drum. Okay, so turning this one off. All it is, to me, it's just adding more of the actual sound of the drum. Okay, that's pretty low. That sounds awesome. And then over here, I'll show you what this sounds like if I boost it. I don't think that is helping at all. In fact, I think it hurts. So I pull it out, and even that alone, right? So here's the drum with that one EQ off. And then if I boost that spot again, I mean, that just sounds huge. I mean, you can go crazier. You can add, let's see. Let's see, that's a, okay, so this frequency here is 53, so at 106, you should hear that pitch doubled. Let's see if I can make that work. But over here, we're getting what is a fifth. Which is a cool sound, I guess, but I don't know if it's adding any life to the drum. And you get some attack at like 4 to 10K. That would help really make the kick, the floor tom cut through. So. I almost don't think it needs this, but whatever, I'll leave it on. So now, the whole shebang. Sorry, let's shorten that. Okay, that come down. Let's bring that rack tom a little bit. That sounds pretty good to me. So let's, I'm gonna show you now kick, all this stuff that's on the kick is off. This is what that's what the kick sounds like originally. With that stuff back on. Okay, snare. And then the toms again. Nothing on it. That rack tom's got a lot of stuff that I just don't like, but I throw it on. Let's do the 4-tom first. Now, you can get a lot more surgical with EQs and things on instruments. If I was really trying to EQ stuff, I would take time to help create the exact sound I'm looking for. GarageBand isn't the most robust audio program, so it's got limitations. I have another piece of software that I think is way better that I use regularly. But I'm not going to use that today because not everyone has it. So that's it for now. I'd love to do more with reverb and things, but I think this is a good starting point. That's about it. Talk to you soon. Peace.